All right, let's talk about something we do all day, every day, without even thinking about it. Communication. We're going to peel back the layers and see how it's so much more than just the words we say.
You know that feeling, right? Where you say one thing, but someone hears something completely different, and you're both just left standing there thinking, how did we get so lost in translation? Well, it turns out there are all these hidden worlds of meaning packed into every single conversation.
Okay, so let's dive into this. We'll start with the most obvious part of how we communicate, the code itself, our verbal language. But as you'll see, it's built on some pretty fascinating and honestly kind of strange ideas. I mean, think about it for a second. The word cow, it's just a sound, right? C-O-W. There's nothing inherently cowy about it. We, as English speakers, just agree that this particular sound refers to that big four-legged animal that says moo. It's a symbol we all decided to accept.
So if words are just these symbols we've all agreed on, what are they actually made of? Well, this is where it gets cool. Linguists break it all down into a few key building blocks that work together in this, well, miraculous way.
It all starts with the sounds. That's phonology. It's basically the sound system of a language. Every language has its own unique set of these basic sound units, called phonemes. So for cow, you've got the k sound and the ow sound. And every language has rules about how you can stick them together.
Okay, so next, we take those sounds and we build them into these little chunks of meaning. We call them morphemes. So the word happy is one morpheme. It means something on its own. But if you stick another morpheme on the front, like you've completely flipped the meaning. And that's pretty much how we build our entire vocabulary.
Now here's where it gets really interesting. The code we use doesn't just describe the world around us. Some theories say it actually helps shape the very way we see reality. Yeah, this is where things get a little mind-bending. So there's this idea called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, and the core of it is this. Our language gives us the framework for our thoughts. It's not just a tool we use to talk about what we're thinking, it might actually be the lens that forms those thoughts in the very first place.
Whorf himself put it perfectly with this quote. He's basically saying that reality is just this continuous, messy flow of stuff happening. And our language, it's like a pair of scissors that we use to snip that reality into neat, understandable pieces. The thing is, different languages have different kinds of scissors.
Now, to be clear, this doesn't mean your language is a prison you can't escape. The more modern, kind of weaker version of this theory, called linguistic relativity, sees it more as an influence. Of course, we can think of things we don't have a specific word for. But if a culture has dozens of words for snow, it just tells you that snow is way more important to them than it might be to you.
So you see, if language shapes our world, it also says a ton about who we are and where we fit in that world. It's a huge badge of our identity.
Let me tell you this really powerful story from the source material. It's about a university student from a rural part of the country. He gets to school and his professors tell him flat out that his accent is inappropriate for a career in broadcasting.
So what does he do? Well, what many of us would probably do, he works his tail off to change the way he speaks. He learns what they call the standard accent, so he can fit in, follow the rules, and get his career going. He adapted, so he could belong.
But then, and this is the part that really gets you, he goes home for a holiday break. He calls out to his mom, and she doesn't even recognize his voice. She tells him he needs to start talking right again if he wants to come in the house. He was caught between two worlds, and it just perfectly shows how deep the roots of language go into our sense of who we are.
All right, we've talked about words, but what about everything else? Let's move to the final, and you could argue the biggest layer of communication, that huge, powerful world of nonverbal signals. You've probably seen this number thrown around. Now, the exact percentage is something people debate, but it makes a really important point. A massive chunk of the meaning we get from any conversation comes from things like our tone of voice, our facial expressions, our body language, not the words themselves. Just think about it. If your friend tells you, "I'm fine," with a big smile, you believe them. But what if they say, "I'm fine," while slumping their shoulders and looking at the floor? Which message are you going to trust? The nonverbal one? Every time. We just instinctively feel it's more honest because it's harder to control. So our nonverbal cues are always working with our words, and they do it in a few key ways. They can repeat what we say, like when you point while giving directions. They can totally contradict it, like in our "I'm fine" example. They can even substitute for words. A simple thumbs up does the job, right? They can also complement our message, accentuate a certain point, or even regulate the back and forth of a conversation. But, and this is a big but, here's where it all gets tricky.
All these signals, both the verbal and the nonverbal ones, are not universal. They can mean wildly different things depending on your cultural background.
This is a perfect example, a simple pat on a child's head. In a place like Australia, it's a sweet sign of affection. But in Thailand, where the head is considered sacred, it's deeply offensive. It's the exact same action, but the cultural software that's processing it is totally different.
And that's the real challenge, isn't it? There's no grammar book for body language. There's no dictionary for gestures. We just soak up these unwritten rules by growing up in our culture. And that makes it so easy to misread a signal or send the wrong message when we're interacting with people from different backgrounds.
And I think this quote just says it all. As much as we rely on words, the most powerful, the most fundamental human messages of love, of anger, of connection, are so often delivered without a single word being spoken.
So the next time you're talking with someone, try an experiment. Look past the words. Pay attention to the gestures, the tone, that unspoken dance that's happening. Because if our spoken language is what frames our world, it's the unspoken language that really fills it with all the color and meaning. Thanks for joining me.